I walk and I talk with the King.
Good morning, and as always, we appreciate so much your taking time out of your day to be with us on this another discussion on Tuesday Tips. Our discussion, our ongoing discussion, has been focusing on faith from the book of James. We have noticed time and time again that without faith it is impossible to please Him. For he that cometh to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. Concerning that fact of faith, we understand that James helps us to understand. He gives insight, inspired insight to what that verse is really all about. What it means to diligently seek Him. It takes diligence to make our calling and election sure. 2 Peter chapter 1, verses 9 and 10. In that particular chapter, Peter refers to various things that we should add to our faith. Add to our faith virtue, knowledge, temperance, and so forth. And so as we think about our discussing the facts of faith or focusing on faith, we understand that a diligent seeker of God is conscious, is aware of the things necessary as it pertains to his faith, because that's what pleases God. And so as we focus on faith, we've been noticing various lessons from the first chapter of the book of James. We began our discussion, if you happen to be with us back in earlier episodes of Tuesday Tips, we kind of noticed various aspects of faith throughout the book of James, but we have begun now to get deeper and deeper within the book, especially from chapter 1, as to what faith is about, practically speaking, how it applies to me in my everyday walk of life as a child of God. And so you and I learn things that are very important, that are very practical. James is a book of very practical instruction. And so when it comes to faith, there are things that are simple to understand, yet at the same time can be difficult to execute in our lives. So as you are aware, if you have been with us previous, we have been discussing the nature of temptation. As we focus on faith, James explains to us that the one who has faith properly realizes the nature of temptation. And one way he gives insight concerning the idea of what the nature of temptation is in reality is how the order of temptation takes place. We noticed last week the order of temptation has to do with the desire. Everyone is tempted by their own desires, and they're drawn away. So you have the desire, you have the drawing away, the allurement of Satan. And then there's the deed. The desire plus the drawing away equals the deed. Sin. The English Standard Version, as we notice, refers to this as when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin. So as we thought about that perspective this past week, today we're going to see that the one who has faith, according to James, the inspired writer, properly realizes the nature of temptation as a result of two things: the outcome of temptation and the obligation in view of temptation. We continue our study in verses 15 and 16. The text actually begins by saying in verse 13, "Let no man, when he is tempted, say that he is tempted. When he is tempted, I am tempted of God. For God cannot be tempted, neither tempteth he any man." But notice, as we discussed last week, every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin. And now notice, when it is finished, it bringeth forth death. Once our lust is conceived, it bringeth forth sin. Sin, then, its outcome brings death. In other words, the outcome of temptation leads to sin. Then sin leads to spiritual death. Paul, in Romans 6 and verse 23, he says, the wages of sin is death. As James is describing it, when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, it bringeth forth death. The very same outcome is noted by James, the inspired writer, and Paul, the Apostle Paul, the inspired writer. Paul will add, but the gift of God is life through Jesus Christ our Lord. That's what we focus upon. As we focus our faith and we focus on faith, we realize that the one who has faith in understanding the proper nature of temptation, he knows that that's the outcome. This is the outcome. I like to refer to this as LSD. We know the allurement, the entrapment that this horrible, horrific drug does to the human body and what it causes one to do, what it leads one to do. And so, spiritually speaking, this is LSD. Lust, sin, death. As is the physical drug and what it does and leading to very bad things, so is the outcome of temptation. Lust, sin, death. We also understand, as James explains in verse 16, there is an obligation in view of the temptation and the recognition we have concerning its nature. The man of faith should not be deceived. It's interesting that after stating this series of the nature of temptation and what it leads to and its conception of sin and then sin ending in death, he will make this statement, do not err, my beloved brethren. Don't be mistaken when it comes to the nature of sin. It's very important that we realize what James is talking about here concerning our faith. To have a faith that pleases God, and understanding that the one who has that faith has the understanding of the true knowledge of temptation. Knowing this before will help us when we're tempted, as to not allow that temptation to conceive into sin, because we know we can't be wrong. We do not need to err when it comes to the understanding of temptation. Temptation comes from Satan. It doesn't come from God. It comes from Satan. And so James helps us to understand how to properly face temptation. And it has to do with knowing. In order to, as we are able to know, there's no reason to err. Does that mean that we will never make a mistake? Obviously not. God understands that sometimes we fail, but we are reminded to keep an understanding as it pertains to faithfulness. And certainly what James reveals about the nature of temptation helps us. It certainly helps us to understand how we can, as we focus our faith, as a person who has faith in God and wants to continue to diligently seek Him, the blessings that this provides. We thank you once again for being with us. Hope you can be again with us, Lord willing, next Tuesday.
I walk and I talk with the King.